Congressman Alan Grayson is visiting us again. Congressman Grayson, grayson.house.gov, of course, and no shortage of websites associated with him. What's the most recent? TradeTreachery dot something, sir?
Yes, TradeTreachery.com.
.com. Thank you. Congressman Grayson, welcome back.
Yes, thanks to be on your show again.
And let me add, you will be taking phone calls. So if anybody has any questions for Congressman Grayson, who is here with us for this next hour, please give us a shout. So let's start out. What do you see as the big news of the day, Congressman? What's on your mind?
Well, big news of the day is that the government is not shut down. Hooray!
Yeah.
It's like saying when you go for a walk, I feel so good that I didn't stumble and fall. It's strange that it's come to this, that this is the good news of the day, that the government did not shut down.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah, and your thoughts on the legislation that was passed, I guess, at 9 o'clock this morning, the omnibus spending bill?
I honestly think that our leadership, the Democratic leadership, and specifically Nancy Pelosi, did a very good job negotiating. I know that will cause some pain when I say that, and the other side hears that. Everybody knows which side I'm on. But I think that the fact that we were able to actually accomplish decent funding levels for some good government and even progressive priorities is encouraging. And in particular, the fact we were able to get through this process without having to go through several failures where the Republicans try to stick in absolutely unacceptable riders, like an anti-Planned Parenthood rider that they've been dwelling on now for months. That's also a good sign that our leadership did a good job in negotiating. This includes Nita Lowey, who's the congresswoman in charge of the Democrats on the Appropriations Committee, and, of course, Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah. And this is it for the year, right?
Until next September 30th, and it all happens all over again. I mean, the Constitution doesn't
just in time for the election.
Do lengthy appropriations. We might be able to get away with a 2-year cycle, but the Constitution specifically says that with regard to the military, you cannot appropriate for more than 2 years.
Yeah, that was all part of that argument that Jefferson was making, that during times of peace we should not have a standing army. We should only have state militias who could be called up during time of war, which is, A, what appears in Article 1, Section 8 in that 2-year limit to fund the military, and B, what shows up in the Second Amendment.
Yes, it's pretty clear if you read the Constitution from start to finish that there was no contemplation by the Founding Fathers that we'd have a standing army, much less an army standing in Kabul.
Yeah. And your thoughts on...
another interesting point. There's
Sure.
nothing, absolutely nothing in the Constitution that contemplates occupation of a foreign country.
That's an excellent point. And that was in all my debates with the conservatives during the Bush years. I kept pointing out to they kept talking about our war in Iraq, and I kept pointing out our war in Iraq lasted about 3 weeks. That's how long it took us to knock down Saddam Hussein's army and kill him. After that, it became an occupation, and the occupation didn't work so well. And same thing with Afghanistan. Occupying countries is just, has not been demonstrated to be so successful.
Yeah, it's pretty clear the Founding Fathers at least got that one right.
Yeah. I'm curious your thoughts on the Republican debate that happened Tuesday and what you expect also from the Democratic debate tomorrow night.
Well, it's horrifying. I mean, we're literally seeing the candidates try to outdo each other in who could commit the most war crimes.
You're talking about the Republican debate now.
I was referring to the Republican debate.
Yeah.
That's the game that they're playing. For a while, it was who's the biggest bigot, and now it's the question is who most wants to appear before the new Nuremberg trials. Wow.
I mean, there is that was the point that Rand Paul made, that these are violations of the Geneva Convention. I mean,
violations of the very fundamental principle that we're trying to vindicate when we fight ISIS.
Yeah.
The line that ISIS has crossed many lines, but the one that is most disturbing to most of us is the fact that ISIS kills innocent people.
Yeah.
That's essentially what an act of terrorism is. It's the slaughter of the innocents. That's been proscribed, forbidden, in civilized society now for roughly 3,000 years. And what these Republican presidential candidates seem to overlook is that they're proposing that we cross the very same line, that we kill innocent people.
Although our drone strikes seem to be killing about 80 to 90% innocent people right now?
Well, there's a very disturbing website that lists all the children who've been killed by the drones. The list has over 200 names on it.
Wow. So, we've got some serious thinking to do about that. So we'll see where that goes. Okay. You want to pick up some phone calls?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it. Let's see here. Karen. I knew this would probably be the first question coming up. Karen in Spring Run, Pennsylvania. You're on the air with Alan Grayson.
Thank you for taking my call. I'm really not understanding if Representative Grayson is a true progressive, why he endorsed Hillary Clinton, who is funded by every big bank, corporation in the United States.
I didn't. What happened?
Thank you, Karen.
I mean, for those of you who have been following me and listening to Tom's show and watching me on MSNBC, I've had good things to say about Secretary Clinton, very good things to say about Bernie Sanders, and good things to say about Joe Biden when it looked like he might be running. I said, among other things, that Bernie Sanders is a national treasure, and I pointed out that although I hold the current title for most amendments passed on the floor of the House, the person who held that title before me was Bernie Sanders when he was an independent.
So you didn't officially endorse Hillary Clinton?
What I did was Secretary Clinton's staff was kind enough to extend an invitation to me to join what she calls her Florida Leadership Council, which is meant to help for planning in November. And like every other Democratic member of Congress in Florida, except for one, Gwen Graham, we all accepted that invitation. That's what happened. I continue to believe that Bernie Sanders is a strong candidate for president. I also believe that Hillary Clinton is a strong candidate for president. I think she's very experienced. I don't buy into this argument that she's some kind of right-winger. I just don't. I've spent enough time with her personally and individually to be able to make that judgment, just like I spent enough time with Senator Sanders to be able to make that judgment.
Yeah.
These are two strong candidates. If Vice President Biden had joined the race, we'd have three strong candidates. I understand that there is an enormous level of antipathy on the part of many Sanders supporters toward Secretary Clinton, and honestly, I think that's not deserved.
Yeah.
I also think that it actually means something to the country and to the world if we end up with a woman president.
I don't disagree with any of that. Congressman Alan Grayson on the line with us. His website, grayson.house.gov. You can tweet him at Alan Grayson, AlanGrayson, and we will be back with more of your calls for Congressman Grayson right after this.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
15 minutes past the hour. We're taking your calls for an hour with Congressman Alan Grayson. Back with your calls. And welcome back. Michael, watching Free Speech TV on DirecTV in Imperial Beach, California. You are on the air with Congressman Alan Grayson.
Hey, Mr. Hartman and Congressman Grayson. Congressman Grayson and Tom, your thoughts on Congressman Grayson. Was our government actually considering shutting down the government simply over Planned Parenthood, or were there other deeper reasons behind the scenes, and Planned Parenthood was just like a scapegoat to allow bigger things to happen? What do you think?
Well, I think there's a little bit of truth in both points of view, if I may say, Tom, since the question was addressed to both of us. There were definitely a number of Republicans who wanted to shut down the government over the funding of Planned Parenthood, even though none of that funding from the federal government goes toward abortions. And even if it did, there'd be nothing wrong with that. I've never been in favor of the Hyde Amendment that prevents federal funding of abortions. I think that abortion has a role in family planning in the same way that contraception does. And I also think, frankly, that the most fundamental right of all is the right to control your own body. That's my opinion. It's always been my opinion, and I don't support those people who somehow stigmatize Planned Parenthood over the fact that 3% of Planned Parenthood services involve abortions.
Right.
in any event, there is a deeper issue involved, and the deeper issue is the antipathy of the right wing toward collective decision making in this country, known as democracy. The right wing has never been comfortable with the idea that we make the rules collectively through the political process, and that the majority can establish the rules within constitutional bounds that it likes. The right wing has never been happy with the idea that we have a social insurance program called Social Security. We have another social insurance program called Medicare, another one called Medicaid, another one called unemployment insurance. They want everyone to rise or fall or suffer and die based upon whatever the vagaries of their own lives might be. And that's how they feel. And fortunately, we live in a civilized country where most people don't feel that way. But the underlying impulse beneath the desire and the stated goal to shut down the government is essentially elimination of collective decision-making in this country and reducing America to a war of all against all.
Isn't it reasonable to suggest that the whole instinct to shut down the government or impulse or whatever, in the minute we have before the break here, Congressman, that you can track that right back to Ronald Reagan's, I think it was his first inaugural, where he said, government is not the solution to our problems, it is the cause of our problems? Or
you could trace it to Herbert Hoover.
Or
you could trace it to the South during the Civil War.
Yeah.
I mean, that idea that democracy is somehow illegitimate itself, unfortunately, has roots in this country that go back a long way. But for those of us who understand that what we hope is that it's a democracy, not a plutocracy, not an oligarchy, for those of us who understand that, we are perfectly comfortable with collective decisions being made for the greater and common good.
Yeah. In fact, in the 1920 election, Warren Harding's campaign slogan was basically, privatize and shrink the business. I mean, the slogan itself was less government in business, more business in government. And, it's been going on ever since then. Congressman Alan Grayson with us, representing Florida's 9th District. And grayson.house.gov, his website. You can tweet him at Alan Grayson. And tradetreachery.com. Also, you can check that out for his thoughts on our trade deals. We'll be back with more of your calls for Congressman Grayson in just a second. You still with us, Congressman?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Chris, listening to Sirius XM in Darlington, South Carolina. You're on the air with Congressman Grayson.
How you doing, Tom? And greetings, Congressman.
Yes, hi.
My question is, why are the congressional Democrats always carrying water for the Republican leadership? I mean, they couldn't get their own rank and file to vote for their pork barrel, wish list. The oil company wants and the insurance company wants, and everybody else in business, nosing up to the federal trough. But why can't Democrats stand up and say, if Republicans want these things, they have to vote for it and put their name against check mark, not vote against it and then vote and run against Democrats for voting for it?
Well, we do that sometimes, and when I say we, I don't mean to imply that I'm somehow making these decisions, because I'm not. I decide how I vote. I don't decide how the Democratic caucus votes. It would be a different world if I did. But the fact is that sometimes Democrats supply votes when we're right on the verge of utter chaos, on the very lip of it, in order to avoid that chaos. More generally, we don't. There's so many bad bills that come through the House of Representatives, one after another, that earn very, very few Democratic votes. But every once in a while, the choice is either we provide some of our votes or the government shuts down. We provide some of our votes or Social Security gets hurt. We provide some of our votes or the tax system gets screwed up. Whatever it might be, time from time to time. What we get in return is that we take a step back from the precipice and also have some influence over policy. It would have been possible that the Republicans could have forced through a really, really crappy bill today instead of a bill that we had that was relatively clean of these mischievous writers that they try to put into appropriations bills. If they forced through a crappy bill, and they somehow managed to get it through the Senate and overcome the Democrats' filibuster, the president would have had to veto it, and the government would have shut down. So we do provide votes from time to time, but we don't provide votes on anything except emergency measures that are necessary in order to, how shall I say this, keep the electricity flowing.
Yeah, which seems to be why the Republicans keep presenting you with emergencies.
Well, that's part of it, but I mean, the real reason why they present us with emergencies from time to time is that they can't help themselves.
Yeah.
If there's so many of them that have such malicious thoughts about the food stamp program, for instance, or unemployment insurance, or the Social Security Disability Fund, all things that have come very close to being shut down entirely in just the past year alone.
Yeah.
If they have so many of their members who are so malicious about such common sense things, then, of course, from time to time we have to provide the votes just in order to prevent these things from society itself from breaking down.
Yeah. Anita in San Antonio, Texas. You're on the air with Congressman Alan Grayson.
Hey, hello, everybody. Happy or Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa.
Okay. Thank you, Anita.
Yeah, I hate to bring up Donald Trump, but I'm going to. Congressman Grayson, what do you think? Do you think Donald Trump is actually going to win the Republican nomination? I don't see how the Republicans are going to get out of that, because I think if they try to, there's going to be a revolt. And what do you think the chances are? And are you hearing any members of the Republican caucus actually concerned about that and expressing their fear?
And if I can add to Anita's question, Congressman, I'm hearing a little bit of buzz here from some insiders that the Republicans that they're actually having serious discussions about a brokered convention and bringing out Paul Ryan, and that's one of the reasons why he's being treated with kid gloves by the hard right now, in passing legislation that they would have taken down John Boehner over. Thoughts?
Well, the answers to your questions are yes and yes. I've thought now for a couple of months that Trump is the likely nominee. And I think that there's a disconnect between reality and those people who say, well, that would never happen. That's not how these things get decided. They get decided through a specific process called the primaries. And at this point, the most likely outcome of the Republican primaries is that Trump wins. We have a significant number of primaries, like my own Florida primary, where winner takes all. Trump could get 28% in the Florida primary and end up with 100% of the delegates. And at some point, if you keep getting 100% of the delegates, you've got at least 51% of the total. That's the way this process actually works. If Trump wins in Iowa, if he wins in New Hampshire, if he wins in Nevada, if he wins in South Carolina, then going into the first set of major primaries on March 1st, and then the second set of major primaries on March 15th, he has tremendous momentum. And in many of these primaries, he could come in first with a very split vote, with as little as a quarter of the total vote, and end up with all the delegates. Wow. So, I mean, if those are the rules of the game, it's easy to see how he could end up actually getting the nomination. It's also true, by the way, that there's a lot of consternation. The Republican members are very nervous about this. They realize that they could easily lose 50 seats or more if Trump is the nominee, but that doesn't mean they can change the rules of the game in the middle of the game. They're sort of stuck with those rules, and those rules might mean that Trump is the nominee.
Very interesting. Congressman Alan Grayson with us for the hour, taking your calls. We'll be back in just a moment.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-536-2370.
We'll be back with your calls right after the news at the bottom of the hour. We got calls from Florida, Missouri, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, California, Illinois, New Mexico, Oregon, New York, all for Congressman Grayson right after this. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Congressman Alan Grayson with us for the hour. His website, grayson.house.gov. You can tweet him at Alan Grayson. TradeTreachery.com, his most recent website. And Congressman, you're still with us?
Yeah, Tom, you make an interesting point regarding Paul Ryan and a broker convention. Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
If you'd like to finish, sure. But, go for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's difficult to get to the point where you have a broker convention that's controllable. Fewer than a quarter of the Republican delegates could be characterized as superdelegates or party functionaries or anything like that. So given the fact that more than three-quarters of delegates are actually going to be committed to, and vociferously committed probably, to people like Donald Trump, people like Ben Carson. It's difficult to see how that ends up with a brokered convention.
But like the scenario you described, if Donald Trump carries 24% of Florida and gets 100% of the delegates, that remaining 76% of delegates who, theoretically did not represent him, is that delegate pool pulled from Trump supporters that get sent to Washington D.C. or get sent to the National Convention?
With a tiny number of exceptions, people like the governor.
Right.
Those total numbers are pulled from Trump supporters.
So they would be unlikely to change, because I know that
Right.
the Republican rules are that the first vote you have to pretty much vote what you're committed to, but after that first vote you're freed from your commitment.
Yeah, but these will be Trump zanies or Carson zanies, regardless of whether they have a legal commitment or not.
That's very interesting. So maybe they're preparing Paul Ryan for another VP run. I mean, or maybe the stuff that I'm hearing, the gossip I'm hearing in D.C. here is just nonsense. Anyhow, let's pick up some phone calls, okay?
Yep.
Okay, Pamela in Jacksonville, Florida. You are on the air with Congressman Alan Grayson.
Good morning and happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.
It's more of a rhetorical question, but first I'd like to say real quick, I look forward to meeting you, Tom, and I have a theory about the TPP. But Congressman Grayson, I really appreciate the way you handled that caller earlier who asked you, and it seemed like almost making a defense of why you, I can't think of the word now, but you were for Hillary, and you were really good with your answer. And I think we need to keep having that conversation about. I think I would be thrilled to have either Hillary or Bernie. I mean, I'd be thrilled, but I do think that some people appear to want to take their ball and go home if their person doesn't get the nomination. And also, one quick thing, I think you'd be an excellent vice president. Okay.
Thank you, Pamela.
I agree with you.
Your thoughts, Congressman?
Well, listen, I judge these people based upon personal experience. I mean, I've actually had the pleasure of being with Bernie Sanders for extended periods of time, being with Hillary Clinton for extended periods of time, being with Vice President Biden for extended periods of time, including a 2-hour flight once. And I'll just tell you that I don't think it makes any sense to demonize any of them. There are certainly members of the Democratic Party whom you could reasonably demonize. I'm not going to go into specifics, but Tom, we both know who they are.
Yeah.
And I don't really feel that any of these three candidates fall into that particular category. I just don't. And I well understand that there are many people who are concerned that Hillary Clinton is not enough of a progressive for them. I get that. I will point out to you that virtually every specific proposal that she's made during the entire course of this campaign could only be fairly characterized as progressive. Now, I realize that there's people who think that she's just faking them. I don't have that sense. I mean, I heard her say from her own lips that, as we discussed before on the show, Tom, that global warming is a threat to the species. That's not something that a conservative says. And I could give you other examples as well. Right. So I'm making my own subjective personal judgment. If it turns out that I'm wrong, I'll have to live with that. But I think that these are three very good candidates. I'm proud that any one of them could be our
So
standard.
you said Joe Biden. Did you mean Martin O'Malley?
No, I meant Joe Biden. I actually don't feel the same way about Martin O'Malley.
Okay. Very interesting. So two of the three, are you essentially endorsing is the wrong word, but being very supportive of two of the three Democratic candidates?
Yes, and I certainly I'm trying to call them as I see them.
Yeah.
I've never said that about Martin, and I'm unlikely to say it at any point in the future. I think that I think that both Bernie and Hillary are head and shoulders above Martin, and I've had the pleasure of spending time with Martin too. So again, I'm making a subjective determination. I could be wrong, but that's my own personal judgment.
Yeah.
And I think it is sort of unfair. Literally unfair to demonize any of them. I've been particularly concerned about this effort to pick Bernie as unelectable. I have gone to the media and defended Bernie against that charge. That is not true. I understand the American electorate reasonably well. So do you, Tom. We both know that on the issues, the American electorate is quite progressive.
Yeah,
and Bernie, of course, is quite progressive. So this idea that somehow he's outside of the Overton window is false, and I've defended him vehemently against that charge. Just as I've defended her against all the Benghazi nonsense.
Right.
At every opportunity, including filing an ethics charge against Kevin McCarthy, because the Benghazi witch hunt was completely undeserved on her part. I feel the same way about her. I think that she's gotten a lot of very harsh attacks from the vast right-wing conspiracy over the years, and they were entirely undeserved, particularly about Benghazi, since I've seen every classified document relating to Benghazi, and she is completely innocent.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on all of that. Nancy, in Mexico, Missouri, you are on the air with Congressman Grayson.
Hi, thank you. I really appreciate your show. Tom, I have learned so much. Congressman, what I want to know is with the cost of living going up, irregardless of what the Republicans say, is there any way Congress can go back and give a cost of living increase to help the disabled and the elderly, considering we're willing to give other countries money, but yet we're not able to help our own?
Well, this is something I've been working on vehemently for the past several months. I saw this coming. I knew that it was very likely we'd see a zero cost increase, cost of living adjustment for Social Security and for veterans this year because the price of gas went down. And that's simply not the way seniors spend their money. Many seniors don't drive to work. Many seniors don't drive at all. We have 20% of the population in Central Florida who never drives, and a large number of those people are seniors. So it's silly to say that seniors don't get any cost of living adjustment when their cost of living has gone up. What I did is, expecting that this might be a problem, understanding about how this is miscalculated, I went to the Congressional Research Service, which is a group of experts that are at our beck and call as members of Congress, and I asked them to tell me, if you calculated the cost of living adjustment based upon how seniors spend their money, what should it be? And they came back and told me not zero, but rather 2.9%. So I introduced a bill called the Seniors Deserve a Raise Act, lined up almost 100 co-sponsors for that bill to give seniors the 2.9% they deserve this year, and veterans also the 2.9% that they deserve this year, and then going forward, make sure that we do this calculation the right way, which is to base it upon how seniors spend their money and not how other people spend their money. Seniors spend twice as much on medicine and on health care in general than other people do, even though they're generally covered by Social Security. If you're 70 years old or older, you spend 3 times as much on health care as other people do. And they spend less on gasoline, they spend less on clothing. I could give you other examples as well. So the fact is that there is a glitch in the system. The cost of living adjustments are being miscalculated. I'm working very hard to try to fix that problem. I'm running for the Senate next year. I've told people I have 3 priorities. One priority is to fix the cost of living adjustment for seniors. The second one is to extend Medicare to cover your eyes, ears, and teeth. We have a bill called the Seniors Have Eyes, Ears, and Teeth Act to accomplish that, which has almost 100 co-sponsors. And I also want to eliminate the double taxation of Social Security. You pay taxes when you pay into it. You pay taxes again when it pays out to you. We have to be fair to seniors. We're all hoping to be seniors one day if we're not there already. And these are 3 serious challenges that seniors face that are entirely unnecessary and unfair.
Okay. Mark, we have just about a minute to the break. A real quick question for Congressman Grayson?
Yes, it's a little off topic, but I was curious if the college students who have been gunned down on our campuses during the last couple of years, are their families still responsible for their college debt?
That's a great question.
I'm pretty sure that the answer is no. I can't think of any circumstance where debts carry over past your death to your estate, regardless. That's true with almost no exception.
I have co-signed the loans of all 3 of my kids for student loans for their graduate studies.
Oh, if you co-sign, that's a different story.
I mean, most of these...
Co-sign, then that's possible. But barring that, there's no way that the law would impose any obligation on any other individual for a debt that a person has when he dies.
Right. It would be fascinating to know what percentage of student debt is co-signed by somebody other than the student themselves. I'm guessing the number is probably really, really high, which means that if there was a school shooting, that the parents would still be responsible for the student debts of the kids, right?
Well, if they co-sign, that's quite possible, and that's quite sad.
Yeah, and it can't be discharged even by, even if I went bankrupt, it can't be discharged. They can still come after me because of that wonderful piece of legislation back in 2005, right? The bankruptcy bill.
Well, plus the fact that some credit card debt is now not dischargeable either.
Amazing. Congressman Alan Grayson with us taking your calls. We'll be right back. It's 15 minutes before the hour. More of your calls for Congressman Grayson. You can tweet him at Alan, A-L-A-N, Grayson, and grayson.house.gov, the website. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We're taking calls for Alan Grayson for the hour, and we'll be right back with more of your calls for the Congressman. And welcome back. Corky, watching Free Speech TV in Hilton, New York. Corky, you're on the air with Congressman Alan Grayson.
Hello, Congressman.
Yes, hi.
What can we do to convince you to run for vice president?
I think you have to convince somebody else to choose me. That's the way it's been done in the past 100 years or so.
Well, we can do that.
I will tell you this. I have a major announcement to make. If any of the Democratic candidates decides to name me as his or her vice presidential nominee, I accept.
Okay.
All right. I want you to go after that transaction tax. They owe it.
Sherman-esque statement on my part. Nothing like that.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. Corky, thank you very much. Joe, listening on KBBR in Coos Bay, Oregon. Hey, Joe, what's up?
Hey,
actually, Joe, your station, I think your station's in commercial break right now. Let me grab somebody who isn't, and then we'll pick up your call afterwards. Polly in Riverside, California, watching Free Speech TV. Hey, Polly, what's up?
Hi, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. My major concern for practically forever is the voting machines. If these people, no matter what, can turn the machines, what good is anything else, us arguing over anything else, if they can cheat their way in, which I personally think probably up to maybe half of these people that have been elected have cheated their way in because of their backgrounds. It seems implausible that even Republicans would vote them in. And so what can, it seems like it's always brushed off. What can be done about these voting machines? Thank you. Well,
the simple answer is to have a paper trail, and we should have a paper trail for all elections. There's no reason not to have a paper trail. It is taking a risk that's an unnecessary risk for no real savings. And I will tell you that over time we're seeing, and Tom is well aware of this, we're seeing more and more differences between exit polls and election results. And it's disturbing.
And it's not happening in any other country in the world.
Lying to the pollsters, but the other possibility is that we're seeing votes that get stolen.
Yeah, and pardon my speaking over you. It's not happening in any other country in the world or any other developed country in the world, but it does happen in some of the dicier places. David in Canterbury, Connecticut, watching Free Speech TV on the Dish Network. You're on the air with Congressman Grayson.
Congressman Grayson, hello.
Hi.
I think you're a pretty cool guy. My question is related to the Social Security question, which you explained very, very well. But we have a congressman out here, Joe Courtney, and I saw him in person. We spoke.
David, we have just a half a minute to the break.
He won't co-sign your bill. And I said, my God, Joe, stop admiring the apple and cut a piece out of it so we can eat it right now. He says that he wants to reform. They're looking at reforming the whole system. What the hell is he talking about, Alan? I mean, I don't.
He's talking about privatizing it, isn't he, Congressman?
Well, Joe doesn't support privatizing it, but it's a problem, and I appreciate the fact that people, when they have the opportunity you have, actually assert themselves and ask them to sign onto these Grayson bills. It's very important, and in fact, many members have told me I'm signing onto your bill because a constituent asked me to do that. So by all means, keep trying. In this particular case, you may have struck out, but keep trying.
Yeah. So that's great. You can call your congressman and say, have you signed on to Alan Grayson's?
Seniors Deserve a Raise Act.
Seniors Deserve a Raise Act. Thank you very much. We'll be right back. Congressman Alan Grayson with us for another 10 minutes. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you, Congressman Alan Grayson, taking your calls. Joe in Coos Bay, Oregon, listening on KBBR. You're on the air, Joe.
Greetings from Coos Bay, Oregon, where we had 4.5 inches of rain yesterday.
Wow.
And it's raining today.
Wow.
But I think you'll have an eclipse in a year or two, so that'll make up for it.
There you go.
I think there's a solar eclipse coming in Oregon in a year or two, so there's some consolation for you.
Congressman, I wanted to say thank you for your service. I'm 73 years of age, and I'm a Vietnam veteran. I suffer from PTSD, and I could have got 100% disability, but I got 50. Because I feel like playing fair. I love my country. I serve my country. I'm sick. Thom Hartmann has dedicated many of his shows or segments of his shows to the corruption in the voting process in the United States of America. He's had applied mathematics experts on showing how votes have been electronically switched to some server in Tennessee. You see voting registration places closed, inaccessibility of minorities to voting stations. What is going on in Congress? I've called the FBI, the Department of Justice. Nobody responds to this. Are we going to have the United Nations monitor our elections? I don't even feel like voting.
Well, of course, if you don't feel like voting, you're giving them exactly what they want. But there's a real problem. There is a party at this point in America that is dedicated to suppressing the vote, and it's called the Republican Party. It's a major tool in their toolbox to keep power. They know that the country's not with them on issues like gun safety. The country's not with them on issues like abortion. The country's not with them on countless issues. But the fact is they have to maintain power in order to maintain the perks of power, and they do so through money and through voter suppression. Those are their two primary tools. Now, voter suppression takes all sorts of forms, everything from making it impossible to register to gerrymandering. But the outcome is the same, which is that they end up suppressing a large segment of the vote that's hostile to them and thereby keep their power. It's not something that's secret any longer. I mean, I'm very happy that Thom has done so much to publicize it, but it's obvious to everybody who's paying attention. The problem is we have a pro-voting party called the Democratic Party and an anti-voting party called the Republican Party. And right now, the anti-voting party is winning.
Yeah, not a good thing. Jeremiah in Pulaski, Virginia. You're on the air with Congressman Alan Grayson. Perhaps next year, Senator Grayson.
Voters willing.
Indeed. And thanks for listening to Sirius XM, Jeremiah. You're on the air.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. I actually have a real quick, maybe not quick, but it's a two-part statement. I'd like to get your thoughts on Hillary's campaign and how she will respond to two things, one being Citizens United and the other, the repealing of Glass-Steagall.
Congressman?
Well, honestly, those are questions that I think are better directed to her campaign, but she did come out with a platform about 2 months ago to facilitate voting and make voting much easier. Essentially, what she does is what a lot of us feel should be done, which is to switch the burden of voting, registering to vote from the voter to the government. And that's a fundamental shift in attitude that I know Bernie Sanders has been supporting for many, many years. So I think that's definitely necessary, and I expect that she would act upon that if she were a nominee and elect president, as I know Bernie would. With regard to Glass-Steagall, I think that she is on record as saying that we need to deal with the too big to fail problem before that problem wipes out our economy. Going ahead with reinstatement of Glass-Steagall is one way of dealing with that problem. To be perfectly honest, even though I'm a co-sponsor of a bill to do that, I don't think that's enough, and I think she probably recognizes that's not enough either. The fact that you separate so-called investment banking from other forms of banking is not enough. You still end up with institutions that are too big to fail. Goldman Sachs would be in that category, according to Goldman Sachs, regardless of whether you separated investment banking from other banking. What needs to be done is a systematic effort to reduce the systemic risk in the economy that comes from the fact that large institutions are subsidized by the Federal Reserve and by other federal institutions, and just by the sense that the government will always bail them out, so they end up with lower interest rates than more healthy, smaller institutions. That's the fundamental problem. And we've seen consolidation and brittleness in the banking sector grow very substantially since the crash of 2008. At that point, roughly a third of our banking assets were in the hands of these large institutions. Now it's more than half. So this is a huge problem. I know she recognized that. Any responsible human being in public life recognizes it. And certainly there's no question that reinstating Glass-Steagall would be a step in the right direction, but it's not enough.
Yeah. Congressman, we have just a little bit more than a minute left before the end of the hour. You want to wrap up the day and the week for us? Your final thoughts?
Yeah, my final thought is this: it is possible to get good things done in Congress. I passed my 54th amendment in the past 3 years. This past week in Congress, we had 4 different things in the omnibus bill, 4 different progressive elements of the omnibus bill that I wrote in the bill that passed today. We had 10 different parts of the tax bill that I wrote in the bill that passed yesterday. But the fact remains that this is essentially occupied territory, that the right wing does control the political agenda and does call virtually all the shots. We can try to make progress with that, against that, in the election next year. We have a long way to go. And in many respects, despite everyone's best effort, including yours and mine, Tom, this is an oligarchy, and we have to take back power as best we can.
Yeah. You agree with President Jimmy Carter, who on this program a few months back said, "We have become an oligarchy with unlimited political bribery," was his actual phrase. Congressman Alan Grayson, you're doing God's work, sir. Thank you so much for being with us and for being so steadfast all these years in the House of Representatives. I wish you the very best in your upcoming campaign and look forward to having you on again.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you. Congressman Alan Grayson, his website, grayson.house.gov. You can tweet at Alan Grayson, A-L-A-N, Grayson. To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.